Peace, beautiful beings. Welcome back to Ascension Books and Conversations with Collective Light. My name is Charisse, and I will be guiding this reading today. I am very excited to be here with you today and live. Woo, we made it. Just want to share that I'm working on, consistency, and the consistency is here. But sometimes life does flow in certain ways. So, I'm doing my best to put these scheduled beforehand so that you know when we're going to go live, and any videos to at least show a preview so that you know when to expect. But every Sunday, we will be here reading the Aquarian Gospel of Jesus the Christ. So with that being said, we are currently on chapter 28. And for those of you, if this is your first time, welcome. This is a book that is free to you. So if you would like, in the description box below, you can find a link to find the book and the reading that I'm reading directly from here today. And so with that, you can go ahead and click that so you can follow along and read along with me. Otherwise, you can just put on your headphones, listen, and receive. I do encourage you to please share any revelations that you have throughout this time while you are listening to the reading, even if it's just like, oh my gosh, like I believe in that, or oh my gosh, like I don't even understand that. That doesn't even make sense. Whatever it is that comes to you, I would love to hear how you are receiving this reading. And if this is something that you resonate with and you vibe with, please hit the subscribe button down below so that you can keep yourself notified every week when we come back here and continue to read this story together. We're going to pull it up right here. And again, I am doing my best to just read the story, and I give a little bit of my own reflections here and there. And if you have anything that you would like to say as well, please feel free. But I'm going to do my best to stick to the reading, and I'm not on a super heavy time limit, rather, except for the fact that I need to eat my lunch. I haven't eaten yet, so I will be reading until I'm called to no longer read for today. All right, so pulling up chapter 28. Eudraka gives a feast in Jesus' honor. Jesus speaks on the unity of God and the brotherhood of life, criticizes the priesthood, becomes the guest of a farmer. Benares is the sacred city of the Brahms, and in Benares, Jesus taught. Eudraka was his host. Before I continue, let me just give a brief summary of what we're at from the past reading. Last week, Jesus went to India, and he is now teaching in India, in the land of the Brahms, those who practice Brahmic faith and tradition. And in the previous parables he shared, he was explaining the things that he pretty much disagreed with when it came to those that were of spiritual hierarchy and those who were teaching at that time. He felt that they were missing a lot of pieces to the puzzle. And so he continues to teach his own ministry here in India, in the land of Brahms. So let me I'll start again from the first verse. Benares is the sacred city of the Brahms, and in Benares Jesus taught. Eudraka was his host. Eudraka made a feast in honor of his guest, and many high-born Hindu priests and scribes were there. And Jesus said to them, "With much delight I speak to you concerning life, the brotherhood of life. The universal God is one, yet he is more than one. All things are God. All things are one. By the sweet breaths of God, all life is bound in one. So if you touch a fiber of a living thing, you send a thrill from the center to the outer bounds of life. And when you crush beneath your foot the meanest worm, you shake the throne of God and cause the sword of right to tremble in its sheath. The birds The bird sings out its song for men, and men vibrate in unison to help it sing. The ant constructs her home, the bee its sheltering comb. The spider weaves her web, and flowers breathe to them a spirit in their sweet perfumes that gives them strength to toil. Now, men and birds and beasts and creeping things are deities made flesh. And how dare men kill anything? 'Tis cruelty that makes the world awry. When men have learned that when they harm a living thing, they harm themselves, they surely will not kill, nor cause a thing that God has made to suffer pain. A lawyer said, I pray you, Jesus, tell who is this God you speak about? Where are his priests, his temples, and his shrines? And Jesus said, the God I speak about is everywhere. He cannot be compassed with walls, nor hedged about with bounds of any kind. All people worship God, the one, but all the people see him not alike. This universal God is wisdom, will, and love. All men see not the triune God. One sees him as the God of might, another as the God of thought, another as the God of love. A man's ideal is his God, and so, as man unfolds, his God unfolds. Man's God today, tomorrow is not God. The nations of the earth see God from different points of view, and so he does not seem the same to everyone. Man names the part of God he sees, and this to him is all of God. And every nation sees a part of God, and every nation has a name for God. You Brahmins call him Parabrahm. In Egypt, he is Thoth, and Zeus is his name in Greece. Jehovah is his Hebrew name. But everywhere he is, the causeless cause, the rootless root from which all things have grown. When men become afraid of God and take him for a foe, they dress up other men in fancy garbs and call them priests, and charge them to restrain the wrath of God by prayers. And when they fail to win his favor by their prayers, to buy him off with sacrifice of animal or bird. When man sees God as one with him, as Father God, he needs no middleman, no priest to intercede. He goes straight up to him and says, my Father God. And then he lays his hand in God's own hand, and all is well. And this is God. You are, each one, a priest, just for yourself. And sacrifice of blood, God does not want. Just give your life in sacrificial service to the all of life, and God is pleased. When Jesus had thus said, he stood aside. The people were amazed, but strove among themselves. Some said, he is inspired by holy Brahm, and others said, he is insane, and others said, he is obsessed. He speaks as devils speak. But Jesus tarried not. Among the guests was one, a tiller of the soil, a generous soul, a seeker after truth, who loved the words that Jesus spoke. And Jesus went with him, and in his home abode. Chapter 28. So, this is a really great chapter. Definitely is a lot of the beginning of Jesus's true ministry and his foundation of what he was always speaking about in his ministry, especially in the New Testament. You can see hints of what we already know from the New Testament in this passage here. And I do want to kind of go back a little bit and just share what it came to me throughout this chapter, because this is something that I personally strive to minister to others as well, through my own lifestyle and my own research and practice, through not just a vegan lifestyle of, eating healthier or choosing this for the sake of the animals in a surface level, but it was pretty much explained here, the gist of where a lot of my passion personally comes from, in the sense of when we are killing other animals, because when you see the oneness of everything, then you tread a lot more lightly in life and in the ways that you treat others in your world. Whether that's the cat down the street, whether that's the bird that you're passing by, whether that's the deer you occasionally see on a hike, it doesn't matter who or what it is, because we're all connected here. We're all part of God's creation. And God doesn't want us to have that ability to look at something and deem it as less than. And I think that's something that we've been missing a lot in a lot of these texts that have been taught to us for so long. We've been taught that man has authority over beasts and the birds of the air. And we get that from Genesis. But I don't believe personally that God put us here in order to have power over others that lead to oppression, but to actually tend to these things, maintain these things, love these things. You know, we were given consciousness in order to be able to see that the distinguishing differences between living in love and not, you know, and we've seen that pattern for so long and have become so accustomed to it that it's become natural. It's like we're almost desensitized to it, the killing of animals. And honestly, sometimes I think that we may also be desensitized to the killing of each other. And that has strayed so far from what God has wanted us to be in terms of living in harmony and living collectively in the same space of equality and unity. And he says that pretty straightforward, that everything is connected. And even the birds that sing their songs, the men vibrate on a frequency that aligns with that and helps them sing. I think that's a very poetic way of saying that we are all connected. And also is interesting in here because it speaks about how the lawyers and the priests at that time were asking, where is proof of this God that you have? Where are your temples? Where are your churches and your idols? He didn't call them that, but that's pretty much what he was saying. And God, and Jesus, he was, he was like, God is everywhere. And we don't need these temples to prove that God is everywhere, because he is in all things. And not only that, but he goes on to explain that people are worshiping God in all forms. The only difference is that we are worshiping him based on what we know. And so a lot of what was in the Bible was based off of the God that they knew at that time. And they had names for it. They called him Yahweh, Jehovah. He was explaining, like, there's always this supreme being, this one, this God, this source. And we as men do our best to understand him by creating these different forms, these different ways of perceiving, when in reality, God is, you can't even describe him. There is no image. There is no human thought that can create this God, other than everything that we see around us, even the things that we may not personally, individually like, because at the end of the day, there is a part of us inside of what it is that we're seeing, because we are all one. We are all God. So I think that's a great chapter. And it ends with, humans being humans. Some were like, hey, I really resonate with this. Some were like, what is this guy even talking about? He doesn't know what he's talking about. And there was one man who was a seeker of truth. And Jesus sought him out and felt his heart and knew that he was open to receiving, and thus spent his time with him and probably continued to teach him more at that time. With that, we'll move on to chapter 29. So, chapter 29. This is a hard name for me. A Jainin, a priest from Labor, comes to Benares to see Jesus and abides in the temple. Jesus refuses an invitation to visit the temple. A Jainin visits him at night in the farmer's home and accepts his philosophy. Among Benares' temple priests was one, a guest, a Jainin from Labor. By merchantmen, a Jainin heard about the Jewish boy, about his words of wisdom, and he girt himself and journeyed from Labor, that he might see the boy and hear him speak. The Brahmic priests did not accept the truth that Jesus brought, and they were angered much by what he said at the Udraka feast. But they had never seen the boy, and they desired much to hear him speak, and they invited him to be a temple guest. But Jesus said to them, "The light is most abundant, and it shines for all. If you would see the light, come to the light. If you would hear the message that the Holy One has given me to give to men, come on to me." Now, when the priests were told that what Jesus said, they were enraged. A Jainin did not share their wrath, and he sent forth another messenger with costly gifts to Jesus at the farmer's home. He sent this message with the gifts. "I pray you, Master, listen to my words. The Brahmic law forbids that any priest shall go into the home of any one of low estate, but you can come to us, and I am sure these priests will gladly hear you speak. I pray that you will come and dine with us this day." And Jesus said, "The Holy One regards all men alike. The dwelling of my host is good enough for any council of the sons of men. If pride of caste keeps you away, you are not worthy of the light. My Father God does not regard the laws of man. Your presence I return. You cannot buy the knowledge of the Lord with gold or precious gifts." These words of Jesus angered more and more the priests, and they began to plot and plan how they might drive him from the land. A Jainin did not join with them in plot and plan. He left the temple in the night and sought the home where Jesus dwelt. And Jesus said, "There is no night where shines the sun. I have no secret messages to give. In light, all secrets are revealed." A Jainin said, "I came from far away Labor, that I might learn about this ancient wisdom and this kingdom of the Holy One of which you speak. Where is the kingdom? Where the king? Who are the subjects? What its laws?" And Jesus said, "This kingdom is not far away, but man with mortal eyes can see it not. It is within the heart. You need not seek the king in earth or sea or sky. He is not there, and yet is everywhere. He is the Christ of God, is universal love. The gate of this dominion is not high, and he who enters it must fall down on his knees. It is not wide, and none can carry carnal bundles through. The lower self must be transmuted into spirit self. The body must be washed in living streams of purity." A Jainin asked, "Can I become a subject of this king?" And Jesus said, "You are yourself a king, and you may enter through the gate and be a subject of the King of Kings. But you must lay aside your priestly robes, must cease to serve the Holy One for gold, must give your life and all you have in willing service to the sons of men." And Jesus said no more. A Jainin went his way, and while he could not comprehend the truth that Jesus spoke, he saw what he had never seen before. The realm of faith he never had explored, but in his heart the seeds of faith and universal brotherhood had found good soil. And as he journeyed to his home, he seemed to sleep, to pass through darkest night, and when he woke, the Sun of Righteousness had arisen. He had found the King. Now, in Benares, Jesus tarried many days and taught. Chapter 29. I will not be sharing my revelation. I just want to kind of summarize what we just read a little bit, just in case. So pretty much, Jesus was in Benares, and the Hindu priests were there. And there was one priest, a Jainin, and he did not share the same insights that the other priests did. He really respected what Jesus had to say, and he wanted to learn more from him. The other priests were like, we don't like you, but we do want to know the wisdom that you're talking about, probably so that they can use it for their own gain. And they said that we as priests, we are higher than others. So you are now abiding in the house of a farmer, and we don't go and hang out with farmers. So we do still want to hear what you have to say, though. So you can come to us. You can come to our temple, our shrines, our gold, our beautiful temple, and pretty much laying out the red carpet for him, saying, hey, you are worthy of being here. And Jesus respectfully declines. He says, I think that the place that I'm in is good enough, considering that all men are alike in God's eyes, not man's. It has nothing to do with the amount of gold that you have, or the amount of riches that you have, or the amount of wealth, but it has more to do with your heart and if you're willing to receive it. And this man, this priest, a Jainin, was willing to do so. He snuck away in the night, knowing that as a priest, he was not supposed to be going to this farmer's house, but he went anyway. He went to Jesus. He said, Jesus, please teach me. Where is this king? Where is the kingdom? Where can I find him on earth? And how can I become a subject of it? And Jesus said that wherever you look on earth and sea and sky, you will not find God. You will not find the king. But the king lives within you, and you are the king. And you can be a subject, a king of the king of the King of Kings, meaning that we are all of equal royalty and status under God. And he also shared with him, but to be this king, you have to release your priesthood, a priesthood that has a foundation of serving in the name of God to receive gold and to receive wealth. And in order to do that, you must instead serve all of the sons of man and look after your fellow kings. And it seems that at the end, a Jainin, as he was traveling back to his space, his temple, he didn't really understand. But when he slept, maybe he received a dream, maybe a revelation. But sometimes the answers do come through rest and through the dream state. And he rose and he knew exactly what he needed to do. And that was to release his role and serve all of those around him that he knew needed this wisdom. So yeah, great chapter. Love it. Okay, I think we're going to do one more. Maybe two. We'll see. Okay. So chapter 30. Jesus receives news of the death of his father. He writes a letter to his mother. The letter, he sends it on his way by a merchant. One day, as Jesus stood beside the Ganges, busy with his work, a caravan returning from the west drew near. And one approaching Jesus said, "We come to you from your native land and bring unwelcome news. Your father is no more on earth. Your mother grieves, and none can comfort her. She wonders whether you are still alive or not. She longs to see you once again." And Jesus bowed his head in silent thought, and then he wrote. Of what he wrote, this is the sum. My mother, noblest of womankind, a man just from my native land has brought me word that Father is no more in flesh, and that you grieve and are disconsolate. My mother, all is well for Father, and is well for you. His work in this earth round is done, and it is nobly done. In all the walks of life, men cannot charge him with deceit, dishonesty, nor wrong intent. Here in this round, he finished many heavy tasks, and he has gone from hence prepared to solve the problems of the round of soul. Our Father God is with him there, as he was with him here, and there his angel guards his footsteps, lest he goes astray. Why should you weep? Tears cannot conquer grief. There is no power in grief to mend a broken heart. The place of grief is idleness. The busy soul can never grieve. It has no time for grief. When grief comes trooping through the heart, just lose yourself. Plunge deep into the ministry of love, and grief is not. Yours is a ministry of love, and all the world is calling out for love. Then let the past go with the past. Rise from the cares of carnal things and give your life for those who live. And if you lose your life in serving life, you are sure to find in it the morning sun, the evening dews, and song of bird and flowers, and in the stars of night. In just a little while, your problems of this earth round will be solved. And when your sums are all worked out, it will be pleasure unalloyed for you to enter wider fields of usefulness, to solve the greater problems of the soul. Strive then to be content, and I will come to you some day and bring you richer gifts than gold or precious stones. I'm sure that John will care for you, supplying all your needs, and I am with you all the way. Jehoshua. And by the hand of one, a merchant going to Jerusalem, he sent this letter on its way. Chapter 30. Sorry, y'all. After I stare at the screen for too long, I start to get can't read it as well. Yeah. I'm gonna be honest. If I was married at that time, I would be like, what? So you're not gonna come back and be with me at this time of us grieving my husband? But John was there to at least maintain Mary at that time, and it just goes to show that Jesus came down, Yeshua, maybe that's what he was saying, Jehoshua? That's a new term name for me, so I'll definitely be looking that up. But he knew throughout his lifetime what his purpose was, and it was to not only learn from all of these religious priests and to know as much as he could about the truths of God. He was also there teaching these priests, and he knew it. He was like, yeah, I'm here to learn, and I'm still just a young boy at like 12. Maybe he's a little bit older at this time, but he was still a boy, and he knew that he was supposed to be here to challenge the priests with the truth. And he couldn't just go back to Mary just because she was exercising her carnal feelings of grief. And he tries to share with her that grief cannot live in a soul that continues to move past the past and strive towards expressing love to all those that are still here. And so he pretty much was calling her to her own ministry of love and to be there with others in a light of living life rather than sitting in grief and worry, also because she was so worried about Jesus and where he was. And he was just trying to gently nudge her towards moving forward by herself and giving her and establishing to her too that she had the power to do so. And all it took was that love that she has for herself, and the love that she can give to others. And reminding her too that this life is not all that there is. And that even though Joseph had passed, that he still had his angels with him and was still being guided towards whatever it is he needed to learn in the next life. So again, I'm probably, as Mary, would have been like having to reflect on that for some time. But I think we'll learn more about how Mary moved forward, because when Jesus did return to Mary when he was 33, I don't know if that's exactly when, but in the New Testament, he is back with Mary and John when he is beginning to gather his disciples. And Mary was there every step of the way throughout Jesus' ministry. So it does go to show that she was able to move forward and at least be of support as much as she could moving forward. Let's see. I want to get a little bit further in this book because we have so much to read. And the end of the section is chapter 35. So I think I'll read one more chapter. And then next week we can finish the section of Jesus being in India. So pulling up chapter 31. Okay. Brahmic priests are enraged because of Jesus' teaching and resolve to drive him from India. Lamas pleads for him. Priests employ a murderer to kill him. Lamas warns him and he flees to Nepal. The words and works of Jesus caused unrest through all the land. The common people were his friends, believed in him and followed him in throngs. The priests and rulers were afraid of him. His very name sent terror to their hearts. He preached the brotherhood of life, the righteousness of equal rights, and taught the uselessness of priests and sacrificial rites. He shook the very sand on which the Brahmic system stood. He made the Brahmic idols seem so small and sacrifice so fraught with sin that shrines and wheels of prayer were all forgot. The priest declared that if this Jewish boy should tarry longer in the land, a revolution would occur. The common people would arise and kill the priests and tear the temples down. And so they sent a call abroad, and priests from every province came. Benares was on fire with Brahmic zeal. Lamas from the temple Jagannath, who knew the inner life of Jesus well, was in their midst and heard the rantings of the priests. And he stood forth and said, "My brother priests, take heed. Be careful what you do. This is a record-making day. The world is looking on. The very life of Brahmic thought is now on trial. If we are reason blind, if prejudice be king today, if we resort to beastly force and dye our hands in blood that may, in sight of Brahm, be innocent and pure, his vengeance may fall down on us. The very rock on which we stand may burst beneath our feet, and our beloved priesthood and our laws and shrines will go into decay." But they would let him speak no more. The wrathful priests rushed up and beat him, spit upon him, called him traitor, threw him bleeding to the street, and then confusion reigned. The priests became a mob. The sight of human blood led on to fiendish acts and called for more. The rulers, fearing war, sought Jesus, and they found him calmly teaching in the marketplace. They urged him to depart, that he might save his life, but he refused to go. And then the priests sought cause for his arrest, but he had done no crime. And then false charges were preferred. But when the soldiers went to bring him to the judgment hall, they were afraid, because the people stood in his defense. The priests were baffled, and they resolved to take his life by stealth. They found a man who was a murderer by trade and sent him out by night to slay the object of their wrath. Lamas heard about their plotting and their plans and sent a messenger to warn his friend, and Jesus hastened to depart. By night he left Benares, and with haste he journeyed to the north, and everywhere the farmers, merchants, and Sudras helped him on his way. And after many days he reached the mighty Himalayas, and in the city of Kapilavastu he abode. The priests of Buddha opened wide their temple doors for him. Chapter 31. I think this is a great place to start. Just to briefly summarize, Jesus was still in India teaching in the marketplace, but it got to a point where his teachings were so vast and everybody pretty much knew what he was talking about. And it led to the priests believing that the people would fight back, that they would learn the truth of the priests and how they pretty much did not find equality in man, because that was the majority of what Jesus spoke, was that these priests looked down upon people and had all this wealth, but the people were all made equal to God. And so the priests were so upset about it that they found somebody and hired them to kill him in the middle of the night. And not only that, but a priest among them was trying to warn them and say, you should really look at yourselves, because Brahmic belief is now being tested. And it's not in a physical trial. It's being tested in a spiritual trial. And Jesus is the one defending, or no, don't know that much, but Jesus was on the other side, and the priests were here to defend the Brahmic belief that led to them having all that wealth. And their response to that priest was to beat him up and throw him in the streets. So I think that's a prime example of their fear for what Jesus was saying, because they knew that everything that they had built, all the temples, all the idols, all the gold, everything they had built over this time in the name of God is being tested, and that it is about to fall. And so their response was very carnal, very low vibrational, and they sought to kill him. But Jesus had preached to so many people that they all were there by his side and willing to help him escape. And this has now led him into the place of Buddha. He's now in Nepal, where he is now going to take on his lessons that he learned from Brahmic faith and religion through the Hindu priests, taking all of that wisdom with him to now be in Nepal. And I think this is also just a great way to see, because, we have examples of disciples going through the lands and teaching Jesus' ministry after he died and ascended. But even before that, he was traveling from place to place, already sharing his beliefs, already sharing his ministry. And it wasn't that he was not rejecting the religions that he was finding himself around. He didn't reject the lessons that he was learning. He tested them and he debated on them, but he still received the wisdom. And so I think that it's great to see him as a more well-rounded individual, and that he didn't just speak with ill intent towards the priests throughout his ministry. He wasn't just like, oh, you're wrong, but he really educated himself. He practiced these rituals. He practiced these feasts, or he attended these feasts, and he still felt the way he felt. He still had the wisdom that he had to share and to teach. And I think that's a great space to go moving forward in Nepal, because he's going to also be sharing, a lot of his wisdom that he learns from the Buddhist priests, but I'm sure that he will be challenging those as well. So we'll stop here. But if you just made it in, I do encourage you to go back in the video and listen to the beginning of these chapters. And if it's your first time here, feel free to go to the description box. We have chapters 1 and 2 and the explanation of this book below. But yeah, thank you for spending your Sunday with me, and feel free again to leave any comments based on what you heard today and what you may have read for yourself. And I look forward to seeing you next Sunday. Have a beautiful rest of your day.